September 2025. In the space of just a few weeks, something unprecedented happened in the halls of Western diplomacy. France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, nations that had spent decades avoiding this moment, suddenly crossed a line they had never dared cross before. They recognized the State of Palestine, not as a future possibility, not as a negotiating position, but as a present reality deserving of sovereign respect. The wave swept across Europe with remarkable speed. Portugal, Belgium, Luxembourg, Malta, Monaco, each adding their voice to what was becoming a diplomatic chorus that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. But here's the paradox that defines this moment. As diplomats signed recognition documents in air-conditioned offices, the reality on the ground remained brutally unchanged. Prime Minister Netanyahu's response was swift and uncompromising. The war would continue regardless of Hamas releasing hostages, regardless of international pressure, regardless of recognition. As Western capitals announced their diplomatic shifts, Israeli forces intensified their offensive into Gaza City. The cruel mathematics of conflict remained constant. Recognition could change maps in foreign ministries, but it couldn't stop tanks. This reveals the fundamental tension at the heart of this diplomatic moment, the gap between symbolic power and material force. When European nations speak of reviewing export licenses and limiting arms sales, their words sound like whispers against the roar of American and German weapons flowing into the region. Over 90% of Israeli military imports come from just two sources, Washington and Berlin. The numbers tell the story of this asymmetry with stark clarity. The United States recently approved another $6.4 billion in weapons sales flowing directly into the conflict zone. Germany, deliberately choosing not to join the recognition wave, remains Israel's second largest military supplier. These two nations alone rendered the military leverage of recognizing states almost negligible in immediate terms. But recognition raises profound questions about the very nature of statehood itself. The 1933 Montevideo Convention established 4 pillars for international recognition: defined territory, permanent population, functional government, and capacity for diplomatic relations. Palestine's situation challenges each of these criteria in ways that expose the complexity of sovereignty in an occupied land. Consider the first pillar, defined territory. Officially, the State of Palestine encompasses the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza Strip based on pre-1967 borders. Yet, Israel effectively controls 100% of these areas, controlling access, movement, infrastructure, and daily life. The territory exists in legal theory but not in practical reality. The human cost of this occupation has reached catastrophic proportions. The UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry has concluded that Israeli actions point toward a genocidal intent to destroy in whole or in part the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Conservative estimates suggest over 65,000 people killed and injured, potentially 10% of Gaza's entire population decimated since the conflict escalated. When a permanent population faces such an existential threat, when displacement scatters communities and destroys the social fabric of society, the second pillar of statehood becomes tragically unstable. Recognition cannot resurrect the dead or heal the traumatized, but it can affirm their right to exist as a people worthy of sovereignty. The third pillar, functional government, reveals internal Palestinian complexities that predate the current crisis. The Palestinian Authority operates in limited areas of the West Bank, while Hamas has governed Gaza since 2007. Yet both remain constrained by occupation, unable to control borders, collect taxes effectively, or provide consistent services across their supposed territory. This is where the fourth pillar becomes crucial, the capacity for interstate relations. Recognition by 147 UN member states, now including major Western powers, immediately strengthens this diplomatic foundation. When France and the UK recognize Palestine, they are not just making statements, they are creating new channels for Palestinian voices in international forums. Israel's reaction to this diplomatic shift revealed the recognition's deeper significance. Netanyahu's office condemned it as an absurd prize for terrorism, while the Prime Minister himself vowed that a Palestinian state would never be established. Far-right ministers called for immediate West Bank annexation in direct response, forcing extreme positions into the open. But the Israeli response wasn't uniform. Opposition leader Yair Lapid called it a diplomatic disaster, while others like Yair Golan blamed Netanyahu's refusal to pursue any political path forward.
Even Netanyahu had to acknowledge that Israel now faces a form of international isolation that wasn't there before. This recognition fundamentally alters the framework for any future negotiations. For decades, Western policy treated Palestinian statehood as the end point of negotiations, something to be earned through Israeli consent. Recognition flips this logic completely, making statehood the starting point from which practical arrangements must be negotiated. The cascade effect of this diplomatic shift is already becoming visible. When major powers break long-standing taboos, it accelerates Israel's international isolation and makes previous policies harder to sustain. It's not just about recognition, it's about changing the entire system of international accountability. Recognition creates concrete leverage in ways that previous diplomatic positions could not. It strengthens Palestine's standing in international courts, particularly the International Criminal Court, where cases against Israeli officials are pending. It makes it harder for recognizing countries to ignore potential ICC warrants or dismiss Palestinian legal claims. We're already seeing policy changes flow from recognition. Spain announced a total arms embargo on Israel, explicitly linking it to the Gaza conflict. Other recognizing nations face mounting pressure, both domestic and international, to follow suit with concrete actions like targeted sanctions and arms restrictions. This represents a fundamental shift from the old feedback loop where international criticism carried no practical consequences. Recognition provides diplomatic cover for stronger actions, potentially raising the political and economic costs of occupation to levels that force strategic recalculations in Jerusalem. The unprecedented unity of this moment, a clear majority of world nations now supporting immediate Palestinian statehood, signals something irreversible in international consciousness. But human rights groups warn of a crucial risk. If recognition isn't followed by concrete actions to end illegal occupation, it could become just another well-intentioned but hollow gesture. This brings us to the ultimate question that will define whether September 2025 marks a turning point or merely another diplomatic footnote. Recognition has created new leverage points and broken old taboos, but leverage is only as powerful as the will to use it. The recognizing nations now face a choice. Will they follow diplomatic words with economic actions, replace symbolic gestures with material consequences? Because in the end, the true test of recognition is not whether it changes foreign ministry letterheads. It's whether it changes lives on the ground, where children still dodge bombs and families still mourn their dead. The diplomats have spoken. Now we wait to see if their actions will match their words. That's all for this video on UPSCwise. If you found this video helpful, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to grab the PDF notes on my Telegram, link in the description. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving closer to your IAS dream. Jai Hind.